Hey everybody, welcome. So I was putting this video together for clients, kind of like as an overview of the whole journey of essentially rewiring ourselves for abundance, for the limitless life and business and wealth that we desire. And I recorded it for my clients and I was like, you know what? I should record this for my YouTube channel because it's such a powerful bird's eye view of the entire and complete process of essentially limitless and effortless success and expansion. And so here I am. I'm doing it. Um, so hey, welcome. And if you want to go deeper with this, like if there's something about this video today that catches your attention, you can see where there's one of the pillars where you're not quite anchored and not quite clear. And that's why you haven't been able to create the results you want, the life that you want, the joy and the ease that you want. Then you can check the description of this training. I always put a couple different ways for us to go deeper, some free, some paid. So for me, neurology, energy, identity, and strategy are basically like the four legs of a table. They're the four pillars of expansion. If one of them is not strong, if one of them is shorter than the other, essentially the whole structure is unstable and wobbly. And so what we're doing in this work today is we're literally working on all four. And they're not likely like 1, 2, 3, 4 in the decade. We're constantly kind of work on one, it actually shifts you back in the others. So let's talk about neurology first. At the neurological level of effortless and limitless success, you're essentially working on three things. You're working on your nervous system, you're working on your body, and you're working on your brain and your mind. So here you're rewiring your nervous system to essentially start to feel safe with more, safe with being more of you, safe with being more engaged in life, safe with receiving more of the goodness, the abundance, the joy, the love that you desire. And so what we're doing here is we're rewiring the nervous system to essentially like dissolve any kind of resistance, any kind of friction, any kind of armoring that you might have towards a goal that you're trying to achieve or towards the life and business that you want. We're teaching the nervous system to stay open and to stay available for more. We're teaching the nervous system to be so safe with more that you start to allow it in effortlessly. What that does is over time, that sense of safety, that sense of allowance, that sense of openness starts to increase your capacity to receive and hold what you want. So that's the nervous system piece. Then at the neurological level, we're working with the body. And we're teaching the body to essentially start to calibrate and become a match for what you're trying to create. And what we're doing here, the aim here is what I call normalization. So we want your body to feel really comfortable with what you want, so that what you want feels natural, it feels normal, it feels comfortable, it feels like no big deal whatsoever. And so that's what the calibration piece is, and the becoming a match piece. Like we hear that a lot, becoming a match energetically, but this is actually at a body level, to the degree that when you are working on something specific, whether it's a certain amount of money that you want, or it's the kind of relationship that you want, or it's the kind of body that you want, it doesn't really matter actually. And you start to play with that, all you feel in your body is a sense of peaceful aliveness, spaciousness, neutrality, where it feels totally normal for you to have what you want. What happens when you reach that level of normalization and where things feel natural and no big deal? Once again, resistance collapses, because why would you resist what feels normal? And any form of and patterns of self-sabotage starts to dissolve. And so at the neurological level, the third piece of it is your mind and your brain. And here we're starting to shift how you think and how you perceive to essentially be an ally and be in alignment with the future that you desire, with the future that is possible for you. So here there's a number of different levels, right? But we're shifting beliefs. We're teaching your brain through reticular activation center and system to look for evidence that what you want is possible, that what you want is all around you, to look for possibilities, to look for opportunities, that kind of stuff. And we're essentially shifting you so that rather than thinking, believing, and perceiving in ways that reinforce a past reality and a past identity that you no longer want, you're actually thinking, seeing, perceiving, believing in a way that reinforces the future that you are creating. And again, removes and dissolves any kind of resistance, any kind of doubt that you could have that this is possible for you. So that's the neurological level, and it's a foundational piece. The nervous system, the body normalization piece, and then the rewiring your brain and your mind to be in alignment with the future that you want. Now let's talk about pillar number 2, which is energy. And so energy for me is a continuation of the neurological piece, but it's at a slightly different level, where here's the thing I want you to understand. Most of us have a lot of resistance to growth and expansion. We don't think it's possible for us. We don't feel worthy of it. We feel like it's going to come at too high of a cost in some way, or that people are going to turn on us, or we're going to lose people, or we're going to get overwhelmed by the success. And so over time, we build resistance. Or maybe we've been told that we can't have that to stay realistic. And so there's a sort of like energetic trauma kind of knots and bonds that happen in the body. And it creates a form of interference and a form of stagnation in the body energetically that actually doesn't allow you to have access to the fullness of who you are. It doesn't allow you to have access to your authenticity. It doesn't allow you to have access to your intuition. It doesn't allow you to have access to a sense of certainty, a sense of knowing that what you desire is your destiny. And so it creates essentially either a blockage where you can't quite feel clear, you can't quite feel inspired, or it create what I call like a confidence or a power leak, where essentially it's almost like there's a hole in your pocket. You can't quite ever hold a sense of certainty or a sense of confidence within you. So at the energetic level, what we're doing is we're starting to remove the stagnation in the body. We're noticing where the contractions are, and we're helping those contractions to soften, to open, to let go. Because within these contractions, there's literally a huge amount of your life force, a huge amount of your genius is held in these contractions, and you don't have access to them until you start to shift like that tightness into a sense of openness. And again, the energy work and the neurological work, they kind of like weave together as you're working on the neurology of it and really finding safety and embodiment and shifting the way your mind thinks. Obviously, you're going to start to shift your energy. But same thing, as you're working with the energetic piece of it, you're noticing where there's stagnation in the body, where you don't feel quite as alive or as spacious, as powerful as you could, then you're also going to be looking at places where your nervous system doesn't feel safe and working on the neurology. So they're really working with each other. So what we're doing here is we're removing resistance in the body, we're removing stagnation, we're shifting out of contraction back into a sense of flow, a sense of relaxation, and a sense of expansion. At the energetic level, you are teaching your whole being to increase its capacity to feel alive, to feel spacious, to feel joyful, to feel inspired and clear, so that you can create the life, the business, the wealth that you desire. And this over time compounds. It reinforces the neurological work, and there's no end to the journey, right? Like, it's not like you get to have this much openness or this much aliveness or this much inspiration and relaxation. No, it compounds. There is no end to it. You keep moving into higher and higher levels of self-trust, of self-knowing, of feeling grounded and rooted, higher and higher levels of aliveness, of spaciousness, of connectedness to yourself and to the powers that be. So energetically, we are restoring your internal and external flow. We're shifting you out of resistance and any kind of that's your system in your body. And we're essentially slowly turning any sense of drain, of doubt, of heaviness into fear, into excitement. We're shifting the fear. So any sense of drain, doubt, heaviness, and fear, we're shifting it into excitement, relaxation, trust, and even more inspiration and flow. So that's the energetic piece, and it really supports the neurological piece. And you can see now we're moving into identity. And obviously, the work you do at the neurological level and the work you do at the energetic level, same thing. It starts to compound into shifting you into a new way of being, a new identity. A lot of the work that I do with clients, especially even in the practices I teach, but especially in the one-on-one work, is about what I call awakening the dragon within. I have this statue that I use a lot in my session. It's essentially Kuan Yin, which is the goddess of love and mercy and compassion, and she's gracious and she's loving and she's wise. But for her to be that way, she has to stand on a dragon. And for a lot of us, we have been taught as part of this conditioned culture to like stifle the dragon and to only really reinforce the part of us that is a people pleaser, the part of us that's going to fit in, the part of us that's going to make everybody else look good and feel comfortable with us. And in doing that, we have lost access, or a huge part of our access, to our power and to our knowing. So at the identity level, we are reawakening the dragon within by discovering, uncovering, and rooting into the fullness of your most authentic, peaceful, and powerful self. The kind of the version of you who knows who they are, and the version of you who gives themselves full permission to essentially live for them and to create what they were brought on this planet to create. So this is a self, this is a version of you that will not ever betray you or abandon what matters most to you, no matter what. It won't do it to make somebody else comfortable. It won't do it, like, it will just stay clear and sovereign. In many ways, When we talk about the neurological work, we're talking about safety. Then when we're talking about energy, we're talking about capacity. Here, the identity piece is all about sovereignty. This self will essentially be unavailable for untruth. This version of you will be unavailable for anything that dishonors you and dishonor this precious life that you are living, this precious life that is yours. At this identity level, the work is about becoming the version of you who totally trusts themselves, who lives for themselves, who's not afraid of their desires, and who's not afraid to go after what they want. You essentially, as you embody your sovereignty, you become the version of you who has the capacity to claim, to create, to hold your big dreams. This is both a mental and an emotional shift, but it's also an embodiment process. It's a lived experience. And as you can see, they're all intertwined, right? Like as you start to shift your neurology and your energy, you start to embody a new level of identity. And as you embody a new level of identity, there's going to be stuff that's going to come up on the inside, energetically, and even in your nervous system, or thoughts that are going to come up that you're going to have to move through. So they're all feeding into each other. But at this level, you start to embody the belief and the ways of being that essentially really make you being more and having more start to feel safe and normalized. And you start to operate and move in your life, in your business, in your relationships as this bigger version of you. And you start to lead as them, both lead and hold yourself, but also lead and hold others. Oftentimes, one of my favorite ways of growth is to actually play with identity and to ask myself, and I have quite a few practices that I do in my program that are around helping people really step into a different identity. And I'll break it up, like an identity that trusts themselves completely, or an identity that makes X amount of money, or an identity that is not afraid to be visible, and will work on very specific chunks of it. But that is one of the things I will do with my own work with myself, is I will imagine, and so it's just to use a really simple example, I might imagine like the version of me who makes $1 million a year in her business. And then I will backtrack. I will look at the neurology and the energy of that version of me and the strategy. We haven't talked about that, but sometimes identity is almost like the center of the wheel. There's all these other things, right? There's like the neurology, there's the energy, there's the strategy, but at the center, there's identity. And so I'll look and be like, okay, the version of me who makes $1 million in her business, what is she talking about? What is she no longer afraid to share? How does she move? What is she no longer tolerating? What kind of marketing strategies is she using? How does she take care of her body? How does she take care of her mind? What are the thoughts that she's having? And what are the thoughts that no longer show up for her? Like, I will actually start to work on the other three aspects, on the neurology and the energy and the strategy from the center of picking an identity. So identity is such a fundamental, primordial piece of effortless success, of limitless expansion. And at that level, you essentially start to embody that next level version of you, their beliefs, their ways of being, their ways of moving, and their capacity to receive what you want. The more you can step into and embody your biggest, boldest, most peaceful, most powerful self, the more you can create, receive, and hold the big life that you desire and deserve. when you're working with identity, you're working on shedding limitations, conditioning. Because the more limits you can shed in the way you see, experience, perceive the world, and even the way you treat yourself, see, perceive, and experience yourself, the more you can attune to a life without limits. So that's identity. Now let's talk about the last and fourth piece, strategy. Oftentimes people want to focus on the first three. And one of the biggest mistakes they make is they skip number 4. And for me, strategy, or sometimes I refer to it as aligned action, is literally the thing that collapses time and space between where you are and where you want to be. For every movement, action that you take, strategy that you execute, what you desire takes a step or two towards you. And so it's a dance. At some point, it collapses into one. Your reality becomes what you were looking for. So strategy for me, and how I define it, is the ability to take consistent, courageous, and aligned actions towards your goal and to move as that next level identity. Strategy action is also what anchors that identity. It's not enough to just think about who I would be and how I would feel and how I would think. Action is literally the thing that roots you in that identity, that flips the switch to fully a new version of you. Now, here's the thing I want you to understand. Every strategy works. People have succeeded, have built wealth following any and every type of strategy. So it's not about what to do. It's about doing and choosing the strategy that is most aligned to you, that essentially feels good to you. And for me, like I just gave you a map, when it comes to strategy, what's most important is these 3 words that I mentioned: aligned, courageous, and consistent. Aligned simply mean what feels good and right to you, what feels like a right fit, what feels like you. Like, for example, what I'm doing with you right now feels like me. I'm a little bit of a serious person. I'm studious. I'm a mental person. I like to talk. I like to go into depth. You're never going to see me dance on TikTok and like twirl my thing and like do, it's just not me. It might be exactly what somebody else needs to do. It's not me. So alignment is about picking the actions and the strategy that feel like you and feel good to you. Courageous is essentially a way of making sure that the actions you are taking are moving you out of any kind of smallness and moving you into sovereignty. It's about taking actions that force you out of your shell a little bit and are actually forcing you into expansion, or moving you into expansion. So it does have to feel good and right, but it also has to feel courageous. It's going to help you. The courageous actions are what are going to help you step into that new identity. And it's going to help you play a bigger game and trust yourself and trust life more fully. Once you have alignment and courage, then the last piece is consistency. So you've built a simple roadmap that feels like you, that stretches you, that anchors you in expansion. Now you need to put blinders on. You need to forget what everyone else is saying, what everyone else is doing. You need to even forget short-term results and just be consistent. Work the plan. Because if you work the plan works. So that's consistency. Be committed to the strategy you've put in place, and show up ongoingly, consistently. And this is especially important if you are not seeing results or getting the response you desire as quickly as you would like it. Because there is nothing that will, I call doubt the momentum killer, the success killer, because oftentimes doubt leads us to pivot. It leads us to start doing other things. It leads us to start throwing spaghetti on the wall. And that will, over time, completely erode your momentum, but it will also erode your sense of confidence and your sense of power. If a strategy is aligned and it is courageous, and you stay committed and consistent with it in its execution over time, it will always work. Your success is inevitable. Unfortunately, you and I do not get to define the timing. What is your business, what is in your power and your control, is these 3 words: align, courageous, consistent actions, strategies. The timing is life's business. So don't pivot. Decide what you want to do and stick with it. And stick with it essentially until it works. One of the metaphor I like to use that I got from my own mentor is that when you pivot, when you start to doubt yourself, you start to do something different than your one aligned, courageous strategy. It's like pouring cold water in a boiling pot of water and wondering why it's taking longer to boil. It literally completely erodes your sense of power, your sovereignty, and it also essentially starts you over at the start line every single time you do that. It's like putting a seed in the ground, watering it for a few days and being like, why am I not seeing anything? Maybe this is the wrong place. And going in and ripping the seed out that was starting to build roots, you just couldn't see them, but things were working. And that's the trust piece. Even though you can't see anything yet, what you're doing is working. If it's aligned, if it's courageous, and if you're consistent, it's working. The only 3 things you are allowed to tweak, to shift, to mess with are these 3 words. Can I make the strategy more aligned? Can I be slightly more courageous? Could I be more consistent? That is the only things you want to play with. So these are the 4 pillars of expansion, of limitless and effortless success. And they all feed on each other. Like when you start to really play around with staying fully aligned, being courageous, being consistent with your actions, I guarantee you it's going to trigger you. It's going to trigger you. You're going to have to do nervous system work because some parts of you are going to show up that says, I can't do that. I'm not good enough. I'm not this. What if people don't like it? What if people attack me? Like fears will pop up around your visibility, around your worthiness. That's neurology. That's the brain, that's the nervous system, that's the embodiment piece. Then there's the energetic piece, and then there's the identity piece. So every time you're working on one of these pillars, you're technically kind of working on all the other ones. And you should feel the ripple of that on the other ones. So as you take consistent aligned action, you are completely and continuously aligning and upgrading your neurology, you're shifting your energy, and you're upgrading your identity. To be sovereign and steadfast requires all of these pillars, these 4 aspects. And it requires that they are fully anchored and rooted so that we have them as a really solid foundation. This rootedness, when you're focusing on all 4 and you're continuously moving around all 4 and checking yourself on all 4, you are literally so grounded that you can stay strong and you can stay still and you can stay spacious through any storm that comes your way. And storms will come. Disappointment, setbacks, like personal issues, like you're human, so storms will come. But you can use these 4 pillars to keep you on track, to bring you back over and over and over until you're exactly who you want to be and where you want to be in your life, in your work, in your wealth. And obviously, this isn't the journey of a few months. This is the journey of a lifetime. And if you feel called to, I would absolutely love to do some of this work with you and to travel for a bit with you. When I work with clients, what you can expect is customized, guided nervous system expansion work, simple strategies to shift your mind, to shift your energy, and to 2x your income with twice the ease and free times. You can expect to learn how to shift your mood and your energy out of overwhelmed and frozen back into a place of excited, motivated, peaceful, and flow in minutes. You can expect to unlock your boundless body and activate that next level of leadership so that you can move past any kind of barriers that have kept you small, have kept you silent, have kept your income kind of capped. I'll teach you how to be so authentically you that you are effortlessly seen, and every choice you make in your life and your business, the way you move, is a living embodiment of your truest self-expression. This work is about embodying a new paradigm of being and feeling deeply regulated, resourced, relaxed, so you can feel truly rich and embodying that richness. In the end, it's all about feeling deeply nourished by your life, by your business, by your receivership. So if you would like to experience this work at a deeper level, then check the description of this video. I would love to put my 20 plus years of experience as a psychotherapist, as an expansion expert, as a strategist, as a healer to work for you and with you so that you can create the life, the business, the financial and emotional freedom of your dreams. So yeah, in the description, you will see a way for us to have one session. It's a 90-minute intensive, so we can go really deep, and I'm going to teach you essentially my favorite process to really bring you out of contraction into relaxation, liberation, and expansion. And it's a process you can use over and over and over, and it will shift your neurology, your energy, and your identity. Or we can get on a 30-minute or so free call. And I call that an enrollment call. Like if you know you want to work with me and now's the time, but you just want to pick the best level for you or the best program and package for you, then in this 30-minute, we kind of define exactly what it is you need, where it is you want to get to, what we're going to focus on. And we pick a package that's appropriate for you in terms of your lifestyle, your budget, who you are and how you work. And what, some people love one-on-one work. Some people love group work. Some people want a combo. Like we'll figure out what's gonna work for you. And this is more like if you know that one session is not going to cut it, you want to do deeper, longer term work. And then I also have a free mini course in there that has like an entire deep dive workshop, and it's got 3 or 4 different practices that I've taken right out of my clients' baseline of practices, group of practices, and it's a way for you to get a taste of the work and go a little deeper without any kind of commitment, financial or otherwise. All right, that's what I have for you. I hope this gave you kind of a sense of the whole journey and the different pillars to focus on and to look at so that you can see where maybe there's a gap in your own process of growth and creating the life that you desire. Okay. Bye.